Hello and welcome to the week ahead. This is ES on the weekly time frame, and this is a rounding top. If this was a 2-minute chart, I would be scouting a lower high on the 2-minute time frame to get short. Straight up, that's what I'd be thinking. Right now we have an all-time high, and we've had a stair step down from there on the weekly. And so technically what I would want to see if this was a 2-minute chart is I'd want to see price come back up, set a lower high, and then break that. And then I would get short with a stop over this high. That's what I would want to see to try to short this market. Now, this is not a 2-minute time frame. This is the weekly time frame on ES. And if you look at ES, it just goes up. This is a chart that just goes up. That's kind of what it does. It's designed to go up. That's the whole point. And so, shorting it seems kind of silly unless you're just trying to put a hedge on. So when I think about this and what I want to do, I'm definitely thinking weekly time frame, lower high, I'm interested. If we get up near the high, I'm probably going to take a short with a small amount of risk with a stop over the high. And that'll be that. I'll just give it a go. Now, I don't trade futures. Obviously, I'd be trading SPY or something like that. And the purpose would just be to protect my long-term holdings. That's it. It's nothing else. So I'm not negative the market. I'm just like, if we show topping behavior, then the right thing to do, technically speaking, is to have a hedge. And so that's where my mind is at. Do I think we're just going to roll over from here and not set a lower high? No, because when does that ever happen? Very rarely. There's always some sort of lower high to play. Even over here where it rolled over pretty significantly, broke riding moving averages, what did it do? It came up and set a lower high. And then it came down, set a higher low, and then it double topped right there. And then down she goes. So I'm not saying this is going to be like that. I'm not predicting anything, because I actually don't know what's going to happen. Like, we've been going sideways for a while. Another completely legitimate idea is that because we've been going sideways for a while, we actually just rally out of this, right? Like, maybe this was a low that was set and we're just going to push higher. And so that would be fine. That would be totally legit. I mean, we could even just come down a little bit more and then push higher, right? Like, anything can happen. I'm just saying that if that setup came, I would be interested in a hedge. Let's look at the daily time frame really quick. If you look at it here, it's not that, it just looks like sideways chop for a long time. Definitely has the rounding top look to it. If you look at this high, we got slightly above it, so generally bullish. Take a look at SPY in comparison, and SPY, with if you're adjusted for dividends, had set this top, and then had this whole balance area here that we basically tried to break out of, and then we've been balancing sort of above it. And if you draw a line from that peak, the point of control of this entire balance is basically right at that peak, which I just find interesting, right? Like, we're trying to move up. This to me, like, if you zoom right out, it kind of looks to me like a head and shoulders pattern. But again, I don't like head and shoulders patterns unless you're already scouting a lower high. That's not what we're doing here. This is an all-time high area. So it's just a different ball game. You can't, like, I personally can't be thinking head and shoulders. I'm just like, this is indecision. We don't really know what's happening. I will say that any dips below, like, if this is the value area, as I've drawn the volume profile there, and then the dotted red line here is the point of control of that value area, we've basically spent very little time below the value area, a lot of time up in there. We're currently pushing up through the point of control above this high. So was it a super bullish day on Friday? I mean, by the volume, yeah, it was like we were decreasing volume on the way down, increasing volume on the way up. That's kind of what you want to see as a bull. But same thing as the ES chart. If we continue to push up this week and we get near these highs, I got to be thinking short. Like, it's just the logical thing to do. And it's not because I think that the market's going to roll over. It's just because that's the lowest risk entry when you get up there, and it's the safest thing to do to protect your portfolio. So that's where my head is at. Not financial advice. So let's just take a look at NQ. NQ, a bit of a different ball game here. We had this balance in here that we tried to break out of, failed, went lower, failed, up, lower high, higher low. So tightening range down here below this balance. And so generally more bearish, right? However, why aren't they following through? They're given every opportunity to roll over and go deeper, but they just don't do it, right? They're just not, the bears are not following through. If anything, it's kind of bullish because when it came down here, it tested monthly EMA 12 and has bounced. Yes, it rolled over again, but it held the lows. We got a higher low. And then we get this bullish day on Friday with slightly, ever so slightly increased volume. Now on the weekly time frame for QQQ, you see what I marked here. W2D2U, that means we had an inside bar that broke bearish. So that's inside bar is categorized as a 1. A directional candle up or down. So this one broke the low of this candle, but not the high. That's a directional down candle, so a 2 down. And basically, because we couldn't go lower, my expectation is If we break the high of last week, we're going to be pushing up. So this will be a 2 down, 2 up reversal. So I'm kind of expecting bullishness in the short term here on NQ. And then the real question is, how much bullishness? How high is this candle going to go? If this breaks the high, how high does it go? Look at the weekly EMA 12. It's turning down. And so, again, not the end of the world, but I don't look at this and think, oh, bullish, we could be running this week. Yes, we could be, but that could also, but like we're really just in search of a lower high. Now, what I have said, and I said this last week, is that higher lows and lower highs, when we're trying to figure out probabilities of these things working, if you're in an uptrend, something like this, right? Say you're in a market that's uptrending in here, and you're moving up like this, something like that, right? When this is happening, you can measure your moves. You can use your fib retracement tool and do something like this. Okay, so if you move up from here and then come down, the deeper you come down in here, the more you think, like the deeper the retracement, the more likely that a lower high will be the subsequent move. So you're watching this, you come down here. If you bounce from this point, you're expecting a higher high. If you come down here below the 50%, maybe into the golden pocket, a golden pocket is a bit of a weird one, but people do often buy the golden pocket, but it's less likely you're going to get a higher high. If you get below the golden pocket, below the 618 down in here into the red zone, much more likely you're going to get a lower high in reverse trend. Okay, so that's in an uptrend. That's not the same as when you're going sideways. I find that when you're going sideways, if you're doing this, and you're chopping around in here, you're going up, you're down some, you're up, down some, you're doing this, I find that the retracement sizes are much less meaningful. You never know what's going to happen on these ones. It's just, you're not in an uptrend, so you can't count on a higher low working. You can't even count on lower, like it's just, the retracement sizes matter less. And so this could rally up, push all the way to the highs, and then just come all the way back down. You're in a range. And so when you're ranging like this, I actually care less about retracement sizes, and I just care more about, are you at the top of the range? Are you at the bottom of the range? Are you in the middle of the range? So if you're at the top of the range, again, this is what I was talking about with SPY, you're thinking about the range continuing. Now, could the range break? Absolutely. But if you've been ranging, you've got a defined pattern, everybody can see it from space, you've got to be thinking when you're at the top of the range, you got to play to the bottom of the range, and vice versa. When you're at the bottom of the range, you got to play to the top of the range. That's it. Like if you're in the middle of the range, don't do anything. Just don't enter trades in the middle of the range. And so that's what I'm thinking about this range trading right now. Like I don't look at this higher low and think, sweet, we're going back to the top. I'm like, well, yeah, if we're going back to the top, it's not because of this higher low, it's because we tested the bottom of the range. And the most likely thing is, yeah, we're going to go back up to the top of the range. And then from the top of the range, probably we'll just reject and go back down to the bottom of the range again. Unless we show up with volume and break out of the range at the top or at the bottom. That's the only thing that's going to change anything. And clearly, you can see 3 weeks ago, we tried to break down to the bottom of the range, could not do it. On that same week, we had a huge bounce off the bottom. So bulls showing up, letting the range continue to be the thing. So am I bullish on the market? No. Am I bearish on the market? No. I just feel indifference to the market. Okay, on to signals. So some interesting charts that I've been watching. So on silver, we got our high, low, lower high, lower high, higher low. And now we're pushing up. Everybody knows that gold, if you've been watching gold, has been relatively strong compared to silver. High, low, lower high, and they didn't get a lower low. First got a higher low, a little bit of a higher high, higher low. This is just sort of getting into the grindy mode that gold tends to be in after this big pullback. So I'd say this is looking really good. It needs to break this high over here to show continued strength, right there. So, need that to happen for gold to remain strong. Meanwhile, silver, I really do think that is a big thing I'm watching for this week. Is silver going to return to strength again? Are we going to see, money rushing into the metals again, and that being a safety play? That's important. I want to see what happens there. So I'm watching that this week. Google broke the daily stair step. I bought this dip down here. Really glad I did, because this was 9 stair steps down, a gap down after the 9 stair steps. I bought it on the flush, and now it's finally following through. Nice trade there. I want to see, does this thing continue to push up, or are we going to reject this daily EMA 12 and just get a lower high? So watching this closely to see what happens this week. Again, I want to see where are the places that the bulls are like getting an opportunity, and do they seize that opportunity or do they fail? So silver being one, Google being another. Tesla is on the 4-hour time frame of tightening range. Actually, go back to the daily really quick. So daily downtrend. Got a nice rally up here, potential daily higher low, and now we're a 4-hour tightening range. So I'm watching these levels to see if they break. I haven't set alerts on them yet, but I will. I want to see, do we break this level, this one? Are we able to push up out of this balance? Either way, volatility is coming to Tesla this week for sure. I don't know which direction it's going to be, but that's going to be something I'm watching, because obviously if strength can return to a name like Tesla, which is one of the most highly valued and weighted names in the stock market, that can have a big effect on the market overall. So this one is highly on watch. Netflix on the daily time frame, daily downtrend, riding EMA 12 the whole way. It has this level from back over here. Go to the weekly. There it is. So here is the 2021 high, and we're coming in towards it really fast. And we're really close. At the lows here, we got $5 from it, but we didn't quite get there. And now if you look at the weekly time frame here, you see that we're stair-stepping down on the weekly. So each high is lower than the prior one. And now we have an inside bar from last week. We closed near the highs. I'm watching to see, does this break? If it does, that'll be your first clue that this daily rider could break. So it was looking pretty good towards the end of the week here. So I call this a weekly 2 down, 1 inside bar, 2 up reversal. So we're gonna have to see. And if it does, does it just reject or what? Either way, the daily rider is the guide for now. Just that if that weekly high breaks, that's a good signal that things could be shifting. And it's something that people are going to be watching and paying attention to. It would not surprise me at all if Netflix does not get to this top before getting its bounce on. It just front runs it a bit, because I think a lot of eyes are on this thing. So again, that's another thing. If Netflix can turn around, that can be big for the market. I know there's a lot of institutions that are like heavy on Netflix. And if Netflix does turn around, there's going to be a lot of money that comes back into it, because I think Shadow Trader said this, and I agree. Big money investors can't afford to not be in Netflix if it starts to rally again. So if this thing shows signs of turning around, I think money's going to come back into it. Otherwise, they'll have their customers to answer to. Why aren't we in Netflix? Amazon had these 2 gap downs. This crazy earnings reaction where we had a gap down, earnings gap down again. We're coming in, we got this gap above. I'm watching to see, do we get into the gap range? If we get into the gap range, do we fill this gap? Do we fill that gap? How high can this thing bounce? And obviously, I think the whole tariff thing that happened last week is having an effect, and it rallied on Friday as a result. But I want to see, is this strength going to continue, or do the bulls just not follow through? So that's another one I'm watching. IGV, software overall. So if big tech and software starts to rally again, is this thing going to follow through or not? Right now, it looks like a bear flag on the daily. We've got this daily lower lows level here from this bottom that was set. Is this thing going to just completely continue to roll over now and continue to ride the daily EMA 12 down, or are we going to get a rally out of this? Very important top watch, looking really bad right now. XLE, I talked about this before, that XLE had a bit of a look like it was going to roll over. I will say that if you look at the energy names, OXY, CVX, the main one that's been driving this whole move is XOM, which had this huge base breakout here, right? This massive move, huge rally, and it rolled over, and relative to XLE, became relatively weaker. And while XLE got a bounce somewhere in here, this one didn't. It kept going down, and then finally it had a rally later in the week, and I was like, oh, it might reclaim this rider that it was on. It was on a 12-hour rider. Yep. See how it was riding this blue line all the way up here, and then it failed it here. It rolled over, it touched the daily. When it rallied up here, I thought, oh, it might try to catch the 12-hour again. It didn't. It rolled over and failed again. So that's why I'm looking at XLE thinking, oh, the big generals in XLE, the biggest one is starting to show signs of cracking. So is XOM going to continue to roll over and drag the market down? Like I said, I don't think that's the end of things for XLE if it does. I think that it needs consolidation. It would be super healthy to pull back here, and there's tons of room for a higher low after this massive, massive move up. So watching for that if we do get a pullback. And honestly, like if we did get an energy pullback and it did set a higher low, and that happened as SPY was hitting new highs or pushing to the top, that would just make me want to get on that hedge on SPY even more, and it would make me want to try to get long on the energy names. Okay, pockets of strength in the market. We have ZW. This is wheat futures. This is something I've started to watch this week because this rally is unlike any of the other ones that I've seen. I'm not a big futures trader, but this was shown to me this week, and I spent a lot of time looking at the chart. So look at the 4-hour to see how this thing is moving. Look at this move. Crazy. Hasn't even touched the 4-hour in a few days. It's just massive, massive rally on big volume. Is this the same as other moves? You see that it's done this before many times. So what I did is, knowing what this move has looked like as things have pushed so hard, I went back and looked at every other time that it's made a big move like this. None of them are like this. All of them show topping behavior. This one's showing, the pattern that I'm seeing on this move here is this. And my expectation is that when it does that, it's going to do this, and then again. What I saw on these other moves, on these moves here, was this. The curve matters. If every one of these moves does this sort of curve, and this one is doing this sort of curve, that's different. That's just a change in character. And so I'm much more interested in this rally than I have been in any of the other ones, not to mention the fact that it is breaking this prior high. If you look at all of the other moves that have happened here, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this is the only one in recent past that broke a high and then fully rejected. So it just broke this high. I want to see how much follow through it gets. And then do we get a higher low and does it continue? You know, I could see this just being realistic, getting sort of like a wavy trend up. So get this thing to move up a little higher, balance, continue. Like that would be pretty awesome. So I'm looking for higher lows on this name. I don't trade futures. If I do this, I'm going to have to do it in wheat, which is a very low liquidity thing with gaps all over the place. And I can't trade this chart. If I trade it, I'm going to be trading it based on this chart, and I'm going to be having very wide stops, so smaller amount of shares going into this thing. Just because if this is a trend change and this thing can break this longer term downtrend, that would be pretty dope, and I'd want to be in on that move. So yeah, I want to see it. Does it show continued strength there or not? SMH strong, right? Like super strong. And where is the strength coming from in SMH? Well, it's got to be these memory stocks, which are continuing to hold up. SNDK holding the daily rider. MU is not really a rider at all. It's out here in no man's land, but setting higher lows. And so neat to see. Is this a bull flag? Is it a rollover? It looks really strong. And as long as SMH continues to show strength, then I think it has the likelihood to do so. Another place where semis are showing strength is in these optics, semi-optics stocks. So AAOI showing a lot of strength breaking out here. We had GLW, which I'm in, showing a lot of strength breaking out. And there was one more light. Daily EMA12 rider had this beautiful balance and broke out of it. I missed this dip. I'm really disappointed because, man, what a move. But I was in GLW, so happy I got something. Okay, this is a long video. I got to stop there. But this is what I'm looking at. The market overall looks like it's a sideways choppy range. If you look at the equal weighted, like RSP compared to SPY, you see that the equal weighted names are in an uptrend. So all this really means is if you look at SPY now, right? SPY sideways. So SPY is heavily weighted towards the large cap names. If you look at RSP, which is an equal weight of the same names, it's trending up. So what does that mean? You know, money is rotating in the market. Money is going to places to smaller names, and those smaller names are getting moves and pushing the equal weighted market up. And meanwhile, you know, we're just waiting to see what's going to happen with these big cap tech names. Are they going to start to get any change here, which is why I'm watching them so closely? Are we going to see software continue to break down? Are we going to see energy roll over? These are all things that I got to watch this week and see, and then it'll sort of help me understand where should I be trading, if at all. And yeah, it's kind of a mess out there, but this is all I have to go on. I don't have a magic ball, so I'm just reviewing the market and seeing what I can see and watching for signals. So are these things going to happen? Are the bulls going to show up in big tech, or are they not? Are software stocks going to roll over? Is energy going to roll over? Is wheat going to continue with strength? Are SanDisk and MU and all the memory names going to continue to rally? Are these stocks that are riding trends going to continue to ride them, or are new ones going to show up and take their place? We will see. And if we get a market that pushes back to highs, am I going to take a hedge? Yes, I am. All right, that's it for me. Happy trading and have a great week. Hey, if you like my indicators on TradingView and you like the content I'm producing here on this channel, please remember to like and subscribe.